Hi, I'm Steve Kellner with California Education Partners, and I am here with Candace Singh, Superintendent at Fallbrook Elementary. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure,
And
Steve. My pleasure.
our topic today is building and sustaining district culture in this crazy, unprecedented time. So, Candace, let me ask you to start out. How do you create a sense of community when your community isn't physically present anymore? How do you go about doing that?
I know. It's interesting. I think if, the kinds of things that we do to create community in our typical life and world in schools is similar, but just needs to be delivered in a different way. The way that we're really working to do this right now is through just layers of communication, and thinking about the layers from the district office down through the rest of the school district and then to our community at large. So it really just has to do with your intentionality about thinking about all the entry points of where people hear those messages from you. So from things as simple as phone calls out to families, recorded messages that we send out that are encouraging and uplifting and clear as far as, kind of where we are and what we're doing, to email messages, right, to websites that we've created and helping parents and families understand, where we are and what we're doing. But I do think it comes down to the relationships, right? And so one of the first things that we did going from the student up was I asked to have every teacher be sure that they are making a personal phone call to every child in their class once a week. Because we know in our community that we have a lot of kids who have no access to the internet right now. We're working to solve that problem, but in the meantime, we don't want kids sitting out there not connected to their teacher. So it started there. And then it would go up a layer, and I asked all of our principals to create what we're calling kind of care teams in a school, where they take their entire roster of people who work there, both certificated and classified, and they've divided them up into care teams, the leadership team of the school, so that everyone at the school is getting a personal phone call from someone within the leadership of the school. And then we just keep building it up from there. And then, our directors are doing the same thing, and then our assistant superintendents, and then I am. So I think the sense of community is coming with just trying to be really intentional about making a personal connection with everyone, however that looks.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. These unprecedented situations have asked a lot from all of us, but I think in particular our classified staff,
Mm-hmm.
custodial, maintenance, culinary, transportation. How do you recognize the efforts of these often unsung heroes?
Oh my gosh, Steve, it's the best question. And I think it's a question that needed to have been asked in the normal times, let alone in this time. That's always been a priority in our school district. And I know it is for many superintendents, that we know that our classified staffs, they are the engine of our schools and our school districts. So for us, it has a lot to do with what I just said a minute ago, which is making sure we're making connection with everyone, not just our teachers and students, but remembering what structures have we put in place to have personal phone calls and connections to our classified staff members. One important thing that we notice and recognize is we have many of our classified teammates who are home alone, who may have, their position, their school, or their department may really be the strongest place of social connection that they have in their life. So it's one of the reasons why that we've built in these kind of layers of ensuring that we're making personal connection. I think we have to be doubling down on appreciation right now. And however those messages sound, phone calls and email messages, I know that when I am sending out an email, I sometimes will just send an appreciation message just to our classified staff and not anyone else. And then, so all of the things that we hopefully were doing before this thing happened, we're now having to ramp up in a way that is more intentional. I would say also, Steve, the last thing that I would mention here is, there's a lot of conversation about what we're doing with our bargaining units and what we're doing with CSEA or whoever happens to be your bargaining unit in your school district. We immediately got to the table with our classified association and developed an MOU to acknowledge what the resources they needed, our support and our dedication to making sure that they're safe while at work. And then we also created a pay increase for people who are working on the front line, for example, CNS workers who are serving 1,300 lunches a day, and our certain custodial staff. And I know that not all districts are in the position to maybe do something like that, but we have some experience with other kinds of closures due to fire and things like that in the past where we have that structure set up. But I think it's really important to honor the fact that there are people in our community, in our districts, who are coming to work while we're sitting at home. Yep. Our leadership team has divided up who's going in which day. There's always someone at our district office from our executive leadership team, and we make visits to people, to all of our lunch sites, to provide encouragement, a daily phone call to our director of CNS, as an example. How you doing? What do you need? I think it's just ramping up communication and appreciation.
No, that's so helpful. Thank you for that. And many of the superintendents that we work with, and it's certainly the case in Fallbrook, the school district is such a critical part of the community, and folks are looking to our superintendents, for leadership and guidance with all this uncertainty. How do you recharge? How do you stay positive? How do you keep going?
Yeah, that's great. Steve, I think we're all kind of like learning a new normal, first of all, right? Working from home more often and communicating in this way is just a huge shift, especially because if you're a pretty hands-on person and you're in your schools a lot and you're in your community a lot, moving to this type of communication is a strange thing. For me, what I recognized in the beginning, in the first week, I was in these nonstop virtual meetings, right? Like we're having now, all day long. Whether it was the two phones, right, that are ringing off the hook, or the computer, the screen that you're staring at all day. And what I recognized right away is, after 4 or 5 days, is how draining it is. I was going and going and going and thought, okay, this is not going to be sustainable. I'm going to have to figure out a different way of doing this. And so I think some of that was necessary in the beginning, and now everyone's kind of settling into a bit of a routine. So for myself, what I'm trying to do is take breaks away from the screen, and scheduling meetings in more of in spreading things out when possible. I think it's important. This morning, I did all of my calls to my calls to my principals while I just walked around my block 3 times. And I just talked and walked at the same time to just not feel like, we have to really be taking care of ourselves, and I think all the same things still apply, eating well and exercising, and those things are, and also my own personal social connection to my friends and family, my adult children, my parents. Those things, we have to take the time to stay personally connected to the people that we love in our life too.
Well, that is a really important message, and I think it's a great way to put a period on the end of this conversation. But Candace, thank you so much for taking the time. We're going to share this with our network, and we hope that you are well and continue to do well during these crazy times.
Steve, thank you so much. And if anyone in your network is in need of support for anything, please, you can, reach me on Twitter or in my email, and I'm happy to chat or talk to anyone who may need support. And so be well for everybody out there.
Thank you so much.